Hey there, everybody. This is Dr. Nate, and I have some exciting news. Our textbook, Internet Gaming Disorder, a clinical strategy guide for providers, parents, and players, is coming out. So, really excited about this textbook. This is a textbook written by psychiatrists, many of which are gamers, for clinicians, for parents. If you've ever been interested in gaming addiction, if you've ever been concerned if maybe gaming crosses the line into addiction, or if you're interested in how gaming fits into the overall picture of mental health, this is the textbook for you. And when I say textbook, I don't want you to think of some kind of stuffy, kind of moldy textbook that you have to study. This is a fun read. We wrote this so it's going to be incredibly engaging. You're going to learn about the culture of gaming and how that plays a major role with mental health. You're going to learn about different aspects of gaming and how they're connected to mental health, both good and bad, and just many, many other things regarding special populations and so on. I'm going to use this talk here to go into our 13 chapters on internet gaming disorder, which have been written by 43 psychiatrists. So we brought together 43 psychiatrists, big names in the field of addiction, behavioral addiction, gaming, digital hyperconnectivity. We brought them all together to write this textbook. So really, really exciting. I have two co-editors, Dr. James Shearer, Dr. Petros Lavonis, huge names in psychiatry, who also helmed this textbook and really brought their vision to it and really did a tremendous amount with leading this project. In fact, this is the brainchild of Dr. James Shearer, who is also a huge gamer. I believe Psychonauts is one of his favorite video games of all time. So without further ado, let me talk a little bit about this textbook. So who is this textbook for? I hinted at it a little earlier. This textbook is, it's for gamers, it's for family members, it's for clinicians, clinicians out there, the psychiatrists who are listening to this, the nurses, the psychologists, the therapists. Do we ask about gaming? Do we ask about what role gaming plays in our patients' lives? Usually we don't, but I think it's a blind spot because how many of our patients play games in order to self-actualize and to explore their identity and to really kind of relax, unwind? And for the vast majority of people, it's a regular pastime where they just engage in the unwind, and it's a very, very healthy pursuit. But we need the right tools to be able to distinguish between unhealthy gaming and healthy gaming. And this textbook gives those tools to you. So we also in this textbook really go into special subpopulations, right? Older adults, adolescents, individuals with mental health history or with a addiction history, substance abuse history. And we look at all of these populations and how gaming may intersect for them uniquely. Let's talk about these chapters a little bit, right? So we open this with a phenomenal discussion about the culture of video games. And make no mistake, video games are a culture unto themselves. They are just a phenomenal pastime that brings people together. And we saw it fit to open up this textbook discussing how culture fits in with video games. That segues into the neurobiology of internet gaming disorder, aka gaming addiction, right? Is this just a thing we've made up, or is there something really happening neurologically to individuals with gaming addiction that separates the individuals from gaming addiction from individuals who just enjoy it as a hobby or a pastime? Not to give it away, but yes, there is something that separates that. So then we go on in chapter 3 to talk about how do you diagnose internet gaming disorder, aka gaming addiction. Then we segue into how do you take the history that helps you land onto that diagnosis in chapter 4. Chapter 5 goes into treatment. If an individual has gaming addiction, and keep in mind, not everybody who plays video games is going to have gaming addiction. I can't stress that enough. The vast majority of people who play video games have no issue with the video games. They have no issue with gaming too much. So, the vast majority of people are not going to need any kind of treatment for it. They may need some intervention during certain like Steam sales times of the year, not buying too many video games. I count myself amongst that group, but other than those very isolated windows, the gaming is fine. So this isn't for this chapter in particular. The treatment of internet gaming disorder is not to pathologize everybody. It's not for trying to treat all gaming. All gaming doesn't need to be treated, right? But the individuals who do have addictive tendencies with gaming, how do we treat it effectively? All right, chapter 6, we talk about the medical and psychiatric correlates with internet gaming disorder. So in other words, like what sort of medical problems overlap with internet gaming disorder? Either they coexist with it, or they come from it, or they can cause somebody to more easily become addicted to gaming. Um, and so there are psychiatric issues and there are physical health issues, right? One example of the physical health issue is maybe like carpal tunnel, right? Another physical example issue is something called computer vision syndrome, where your eyes become injured from excessive gaming. And there's a lot more too. There's a lot in this chapter regarding how internet gaming disorder and medical issues and psychiatric issues overlap. So then our book kind of focuses on special populations with gaming. So how does internet gaming disorder impact children and adolescents? And this title is a little bit of a misnomer because we also discuss really positive and healthy ways that gaming in general impacts all of these populations, including children and adolescents. And gaming can be extremely positive for kids. It was very positive for me growing up, and I think most of the authors, it was a very positive experience for them too growing up. So we really do justice to the positives here. Uh, then we look at the other age side of the age spectrum, older adults, right? Those who are over 65 and gaming, which is a huge, huge population of gamers. How do they treat gaming? How is gaming important to them? And are there any particular risks that we have to keep in mind for the older adult gaming group? And there really are. Gaming can be very positive in that group. It can stave off loneliness. It can stave off feelings of being disconnected from others, right? Tied to that loneliness concept, keep the mind active. But the older population is at increased risk of exploitation and scams online, particularly through the games. We talk about the impact of gaming disorder on the LGBTQ plus community. This is a really important topic. A lot of self-actualization comes through gaming. And this particular group is also the target of a lot of vitriol and a lot of harassment online. And if your patients are part of this group, it's really important to talk to them about their gaming experiences. Talk to them if they're facing harassment online, because harassment online, harassment in real life, I would make the argument they're equivalent, with one exception. The harassment online is maybe harder to escape from, because that online tends to be kind of a safe space, and when it's finding you there, that harassment's finding its way into your home. It's finding its way into the pursuits that you would normally use to be relaxing and unwinding, and that's no good. We have to address that with our patients. That can have real mental health impacts on them. Now, chapter 10 is an interesting one. This is the ethics and forensics of video games and violence. We really, really dig down deep into that discussion on, do video games cause violence, right? So it's a controversy that rears its head all the time. Whenever there's a really tragic, horrific event, there's always a question in the air of like, did video games play a role in this, right? Did this young person do this horrific thing because they played horrible, violent video games? We really wade into that controversy, and not to give anything away, but there's no evidence showing that video games cause violence. But the connection between video games and violent tendencies tends to be very, multifaceted and dynamic. And this chapter really goes into which individuals are at increased risk of violence, not necessarily because they're playing video games, but maybe the chicken and egg, maybe it's been reversed a little. Maybe the cart and the horse have been reversed a little bit here. Maybe the tendency towards violent video games speaks more towards more violent tendencies of the individual that predispose them to want to play violent video games, not the other way around. But chapter does very, very, very good job at looking at all of the evidence and all of the studies. In fact, not to spoil too much of the chapter, but there was a very interesting study done with Tetris. Now, you probably don't think of Tetris as a violent video game. It's pretty benign. You fit the blocks in, right? Make lines. Well, they pitted two people against each other, made it competitive. But the researchers secretly had one person playing Tetris at a slower speed than the other person, and the person who had the faster pieces falling would get more and more agitated as the game was going on, because it was the competitive nature of what they were doing. It was less about the nature of the video game itself, but pitting two people against each other and making it a competitive thing and making that one person frustrated. That led to more aggression and more anger during the game. So, there's a lot of nuance here. Very, very interesting. I've spoken about this enough. Let's move on. So, chapter 11, the connection between social media and video games. This is another cool chapter because those lines are blurred, right? Where does social media end and video gaming begin, and vice versa? I would say it's very, very unclear. In fact, we've seen over the last 10 years plus, those lines become more and more blurred until there's basically no distinction between them, right? Stream video games, watch streamers playing video games. And that's all on specialized social media for watching video games. It's all blurred. But there are particular nuanced elements to how people interact with social media and how they interact while playing video games that is clinically relevant, right? Bullying, harassment, passive engagement versus active engagement, all very, very interesting, all very relevant to mental health and addiction and internet gaming disorder. All right, last two chapters. The future of addictive video games. Where do we go next, right? This is a cool chapter too. I think all these chapters are cool, but this is particularly cool. When we start to factor in VR and AR and algorithms and AI and all this emerging technology, these games are going to get more and more addictive. There is a concern they're going to get more and more exploitative, right? Loot boxes are a real problem. I would argue right now, particularly amongst very young game players, right? Being exposed to loot boxes and gambling mechanics at a very young age, and it's just going to get more sophisticated. It doesn't get less sophisticated as AI layers on top of this, as other technologies layer on top of this. It's going to get more and more problematic. So being aware of these forces, being aware of how they connect to addictive tendencies, it's going to be very important for players, for clinicians, for parents, for all of us. All right. Chapter 13, video games use as treatment. So again, I can't emphasize enough, this is not a hit job on video games, right? We are a bunch of gamers who wrote this. We love video games. So we felt it fitting to close out the book with how video games are used positively. How are we using video games to treat conditions? You know, we have a lot of evidence that video games play roles in things like anxiety and depression and Alzheimer's disease and just all sorts of issues in a positive way. We and ADHD, right? There's a lot out there being explored for using video games in really novel ways. One example is like exposure therapy. Now, exposure therapy is great for phobias. So somebody's afraid of spiders, you know, very, very safe exposure technique might be to put them in a VR set and have them interact with virtual spiders on through the VR or in a video game, right? Um, Another example might be public speaking. It's pretty hard to get a bunch of people together and do exposure therapy like that, but it's pretty easy to do it through a video game. And you could use a bunch of NPCs essentially that they're speaking to, and then maybe graduate that to avatars of real people. Lots of possibility for video games as treatment, and that's how we wrap up the book here. So let me go back to a key question here. Why this book, and why now, right? The the video game industry is massive. It dwarfs pretty much all the other entertainment industries combined. There's 3.3 billion gamers across the planet. That includes everything from your hardcore raiders and your competitive gamers to people playing solitaire on their phones, right? Gaming is part of human nature, and video games are the latest version of something that's been a pastime for as long as human civilization has been around. So it's the industry is getting massive. It's everywhere. And when something is so deeply embedded into human nature and human culture, it deserves being talked about in the context of mental health. Um, it's something which is incredibly positive in many ways. It can foster community, personal enrichment, um, connection, right? But it it also carries risks of excess, like any of these things that we do. The key is being able to distinguish too much gaming from the right amount of gaming, right? And that becomes tricky. So that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you for sticking with this the whole time. We're going to be coming out with some more videos very soon, interviews with authors from the chapters of the textbook, and some videos which I'll film solo here about the content of some of these chapters and why it's really relevant. I do encourage you, if you're interested, to check out the textbook. The link to purchasing the textbook will be included in the info at the bottom of this video. It's available direct from our publishers at the American Psychiatric Association Publishing, using the link that you see here, which will be down in the description below. It's also available on Amazon. If you do pick up a copy, please leave a review. Really appreciate that. And if you have any questions about internet gaming disorder, aka gaming addiction, please leave a message in the comments. Happy to answer any questions that I can. And thanks for sticking with us so long. Have a great day. Thanks.